out the records and I noticed that several law enforcement officers that were on there are not there anymore. It makes me wonder if they're leaving. I got and the domestic violence thing that you signed, it says something about that if women can take these things and bring some good to their community, and I hope I've done that, because there's something very wrong with someone's heart when they're able to turn a blind eye to someone suffering within their own home. I had to leave, I had to move. I wore out couches all over town. I was paying to live in a home I could not safely live in.
Thank you.
And I don't think any village manager should tell a victim on unlawful and confinement that she sees boogeymen behind every corner.
Ms. Wilson, you know your time is up. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Mann?
Hello. A few things I've noticed recently, I looked at a couple of videos from your past meetings, and some of the things maybe you don't realize you're doing that is wrong and unconstitutional, so I want to give you the chance to possibly correct it. One of the things I noticed is in one of the meetings you had a police officer sitting right next to where the people are coming to speak. And the Supreme Court has ruled that that is a form of intimidation, that if someone is coming to address a public body and they have a uniformed police officer sitting right there, in one of the videos I saw this as people were speaking, he was seated right in this chair here. Is that necessary? In my opinion, it makes people feel that they're not allowed to say something or there'd be that immediate consequence there. So maybe not have him sit right next to the people. Tonight it didn't happen, but in the previous videos I saw that. Maybe you want to think about that, because when the public comes to speak before a public body, I know that your law firm advises public bodies that this is not true, but the Constitution says that we have a right to petition. That's part of the First Amendment. I looked up a lot of information about each of you before coming today, but I don't know all your histories yet. But I assume that some of you went on to college, some went to law school. And the Constitution, unfortunately, is not taught very well in terms of the First Amendment, that people forget that right to petition part of it. The public coming before a public body with their petitions is the way that the public holds the public body accountable, and it separates us from a monarchy, an aristocracy, or a dictatorship. That's how things work in this country, and that's how it's been since the days of the Founding Fathers. In Greek mythology, there was a god of censure and ridicule named Momus, and he was an ancient god. He was older than the Olympians, older than the Titans. And Zeus and his gang, when they came to power and sat upon their throne on Mount Olympus, they decided they didn't want to have Momus around anymore because he would ridicule them. He would make fun of them when they did something stupid. When they did something wrong, he would scold them and tell them that they were wrong. And they could not take that ridicule, and so they banished him from Olympus down to the realm of mortals. And you know the interesting thing that happened? He became one of the most popular gods to man, to people. Because that concept of holding powerful people accountable, or people who think they're powerful accountable, pointing out their flaws, pointing out their mistakes, that is something that is intrinsic to our human DNA. And I think it's even in the realm of primates too, because if you go to the zoo, you'll see it happening, that there's ridicule, there's mockery, it's something that's in the DNA of living things. And the ancients had that as well. And one of the things that's really important to note is that you continue to take advice from a man from a law firm that all around the Chicagoland area has consistently given public bodies bad advice. Perhaps you're not aware of some of these instances. Orland Park I've discussed already, where their law firm, Klein Thorpe Jenkins, repeatedly gave both the Village of Orland Park, the Village Police Department, and the Orland Park Public Library horrendous legal advice in terms of the Open Meetings Act. They gave the advice to the Orland Park Public Library that they can hold an illegal meeting on a day that the Open Meetings Act said you are not allowed to have a meeting. But they did it anyway because Klein Thorpe Jenkins told them they could get away with it. And the Attorney General ruled on that in a letter of determination that's in the book that I gave you, President Horcher, that was indeed illegal, and that meeting was voided. But many thousands of dollars, as much as $500,000 or more, was spent on legal fees to Klein Thorpe Jenkins in a vain attempt to fight the Open Meetings Act to keep documents from being produced under FOIA request. And it was just a ton of wasted money. In the village of Tinley Park, Klein Thorpe Jenkins struck again. They advised the village of Tinley Park that they were allowed to finagle and tamper with a zoning ordinance to let this shady developer come into town. Klein Thorpe Jenkins had an attorney named Thomas Melody whose fingerprints were all over that. And it created a huge scandal. The village got embroiled in several multi-million-dollar lawsuits as a result. Klein Thorpe Jenkins was fired from the village of Tinley Park because of that issue. Klein Thorpe Jenkins appears in Bellwood, they appear in Oak Forest, they appear in these other places where boards violate the Open Meetings Act aggressively. So I want to say to each of you, Mary Papantos, Joe Vito, Ray Lang, Mary Kruger, Ken Brady, I don't know which one of you are good board members or bad board members. I've heard a few bad things about some of you. Mary Kruger, you have a fantastic Facebook page with a cool collection of Betty Boop memorabilia. That's pretty awesome. So that's a cool thing about you that I know. I don't know which ones of you are good or bad. But what I find happens in instances where a board has hired Klein Thorpe Jenkins, the good ones for some reason stay meek, and they allow the bad ones who want to do bad things to bring in Klein Thorpe Jenkins, and so Klein Thorpe Jenkins can say, yes, you can get away with that. You can get away with telling the public they're not allowed to speak what they want to speak about. You can get away with having a policeman sitting there to intimidate people. You can get away with whatever you want to get away with. That seems to be their niche in life. And the good board members don't speak up. So President Horcher, I'm here today to encourage you, if you're a good village president, and the people who are the good board members, think about the advice that they give you. I presented you with a book. I didn't have enough copies for everyone here today. Oh, thank you for my time. I didn't realize the 5 minutes were up. I really appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Silver?